This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening. This is VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. It is Thursday, the 6th of December, 2018. You also may be listening to this broadcast on Friday, the 7th of December, Saturday, the 8th of December, or Sunday, the 9th of December, 2018. VORW Radio International is a weekly light entertainment program which features a mixture of my talk and commentary, as well as listener-requested music. You can hear VORW Radio International each and every week online via TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, on your phone via the TuneIn and SoundCloud radio apps. This broadcast also goes out to you on the international shortwave at the frequencies of 9955 kHz, 9395, 7780, 7730, 7570, 5950, 5850, and 4840 kHz. No matter how you're listening, when you're listening, or where you're listening from, I wish you good reception conditions, and I hope you enjoy this broadcast. Well, a happy December, dear listeners, and all of you tuned in, a happy December. We are making our way through the early part of this month, and hopefully all I can really say is I hope this month of December has started out on a positive note for you. Of course, if it hasn't, well, there's still a good deal of the month left, and in that period of time, hopefully things will pick up for you. Well, obviously, it's been a newsworthy week. Of course, I think, at least here in the U.S. anyway, to give some perspective, what's been dominating all the headlines, of course, is the recent passing of former President George H.W. Bush. And he died at age 94. I think lived a very long and very full life, no matter what your thoughts are about him. I, myself, I watch the news sometimes. I just try to keep up to date as to what the major events going on in the world are. And of course, all of the news stations are, they're all really focused, or they have been, over the last week, on George H.W. Bush. And just his life, his presidency, and all the things that he did or didn't do in office. And, it was just I felt anyway, a good opportunity to learn more about him, get to try to understand his presidency better. And I just thought a lot of the stations did very, very good jobs just talking about his life and his experiences. So anyway, how was this week for me? Because as I said, it's been a very busy week in the world, so to speak. For me, this week has been up and down, but I wanted, this isn't one of those things that I want to dwell upon. It's not one of those things that I really want to give any unnecessary time to. As a result, what I want to do is I want to try and raise a point. It's a point that I'm certain I have emphasized in the past, but it's something that I want to bring up because I think it is a point we all should take into consideration and take into account. Whenever I talk about how I'm doing, I try to give an answer within reason. And, if there's something I can talk about or feel comfortable or whatever, maybe I'll bring it up. Sometimes I just don't want to talk about anything and I'll just get into a random topic. And sometimes if I had a bad week, or I'm just not feeling the best, sometimes, I'll go out and I'll say it. But I just don't want people to think that I'm on my deathbed, or anything like that. For instance, during the show last week, boy, it's just one thing I tell you, but, during the show last week, I was battling migraines. And those are no fun. It's something that I've had the displeasure of dealing with. And, saying that they are no fun is an understatement. That's the most polite way that I can put it, I suppose. Oh, they are not fun at all. I'm going to get onto that in a little bit, though. This week for me was up and down. I had my share of good enough days. I had my share of decent days. And yeah, I'll go out and I'll say I had a few days that were downright bad. Not really because of anything that happened over this week. Look, when it comes down to anything, whether you're managing a radio show, a YouTube channel, or just on the job, whether you are self-employed, salaried, whatever it is, you're going to have your good days and you're going to have your bad days. You're going to have days where the numbers could be better, and you're going to have days where you won't believe your eyes at how good things might be going. And that's just the natural progression of things. That's how it always is. For me, what has been making this week a little rough was how I've been feeling the last few days, because it's just one of those times. That's all that I can really describe it as. Whereas, I said, last week I was kind of having some migraines and all that, and they thankfully went away. Of course, they are no fun when you have to deal with them, but they thankfully went away. But then another thing that I, unfortunately, am rather predisposed to came about, and that being anxiety. And that's what I really want to talk about for a little bit, at least in today's show, and I want to tie it into another point that I want to bring home, so to speak. The first thing you have to remember about anxiety is that there are all different kinds of anxiety, there's all different types, and there's different levels of severity. It's one of those things that can affect you differently at different times and in different ways. Sometimes I think the names of all of these ailments don't really give it any justice. Sometimes, when I was young, and I didn't really have to deal with anxiety, I remember hearing the name, and I would think, well, anxious, well, why would you feel anxious? What's there to be anxious about? Well, and now, that was when I was quite young. Now I realize, sometimes, yes, you can have something that's on your mind and it's eating away at you. Other times, however, you can have anxiety, sometimes some of the worst you've ever had. And it can come without warning, without reason. And that's what happened over the last week, especially over the weekend, where it was just, it was a nightmare. That's all that I can say. I'm still not feeling right after it, but feeling a bit better, thankfully. But it was that's all that I can say. It was a nightmare. Where it was just it ended up being a full-blown panic attack. Where, of course, if you've had to go through that, you know the whole 9 yards. It just feels like your heart is gonna just beat out of your chest. You feel you're kind of shaking. You're trembling. It feels like you feel either like you're ice cold, or just your temperatures are going to go through the roof. You just have this overwhelming sense of fear, and it does not go away, no matter what you do. It's there. It's there for a while, and that happened last Sunday or so, and it just came on for no real reason. Of course, in about a week, I think I'll be in a better spot, and I'll start to feel a lot better. But, it seemed like it came on without reason, and it just wouldn't go away. And I tried to distract myself. I tried to focus on other things, but it was just there. It was at the forefront of my mind. I couldn't get rid of it. And I was up for well over 24 hours because I just had to lay there, and I couldn't get to sleep. I couldn't. There was no way. Eventually I did get some rest, and the next day I felt a bit better, though it's still kind of, it's been days since then, but it's, shaken me up quite a bit, and it's one of those things that, I wouldn't wish upon anyone. And the other day, I didn't intend to, but I had to see a doctor about it, and, have a conversation, because like I was saying, a number of shows back, sometimes when it comes down to support systems, what I always believe in, or what I should say is what works for me, is my loved ones. Those who I'm closest with and who I feel understand me and I feel comfortable talking to. And that's what helps the most, in my case anyway. But I always say, sometimes, if all else fails, the doctors can and will be there to help you. So sometimes, for instance, like I said, if the anxiety and all of that gets so bad that it just completely gets into the way of things in your day-to-day life, it detracts from them severely, and you can't do much else. That's a time for a medical intervention if that's what you want to do. So, I did, and, I'm as I said, I've been feeling better by the day pretty much, but it was just a very unpleasant experience, to say the least. Now, you might say, well, I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling the best. Of course, it doesn't sound like a lot of fun at all. But may I ask you where you are getting with this? Because you kind of said you were going to talk about it, and then you wanted to tie it into something else. So, what exactly do you want to connect this to? Well, here's where I want to tie it in. One thing that I've been trying to work on over the last few years, and something that I would advise all of you to do the same. And I think this is one of those things that none of us will ever end up perfecting. I think there are very, very few things, perhaps even if anything, in this world that we can truly perfect. But I think it's something that we all can put attention to. We all can put a little bit of effort to, and something that we can all improve on and pay attention to, because I think if we all did, this world would be a much better place. And while, of course, it'll never get to a point where everyone would be able to collectively work on something, every little bit helps. And that is trying to show more understanding in regards to how others are feeling. I think that is an extremely important thing, and I think it's something that we don't express enough of. Especially in many ways, I feel, because, well, if it's something that we haven't experienced, may never will experience, it may be difficult to relate to. And I get it. I know that it can just be easier to try and, just kind of nod your head and figure, well, it is what it is, but, I can't really relate to it. But just remember this. Every person in this world has their own life, their own mind, their own body, their own feelings. They're just like you. I think we lose sight of that sometimes. They are just like you. And the things that they feel are very, very real. And think about how you would feel, how much of a difference it would make if people really understood whatever you were going through in life, we're able to treat you accordingly. We're able to empathize with you. I think having that sense of empathy is such an incredible and important thing, because one of the reasons why my support network, really the person who I talk to and spend the most time with, why it is so incredible is in part due to the sense of understanding that there is. And like I was saying earlier, if we are a certain way, I know it can be difficult to change that. It might even seem like it's impossible, because our mind is perhaps just trained a certain way, it functions a certain way, it processes things a certain way. But just remember that we can still try to improve as best we can. We may never fully change. We might, but we may never. But we can still improve and try our best. One of the things to remember, like I was saying earlier, and this goes in regards to so many things that we deal with in life, there are different levels of severity, and things impact people in different ways. In many cases, this can be unique to the person who's dealing with them. But if you know that person well enough, there will be ways that you can perhaps read up about it, research it, and know how to care for them, comfort them, and help their situation in the most effective way that you can by expressing that understanding. For instance, when it comes down to something like anxiety, there are so many different types of anxiety in this world. And I think the worst thing you could do to someone that you care about who is dealing with anxiety or dealing with any of these things, could be migraines, could be physical illness, mental illness, anything in between. I think the worst thing, and this is a generalization, again, it's one of those things that will really come down to the individual and to their individual circumstances. One of the worst things I think you could ever do is to just brush the person off and to have no care or no understanding and to just blow them off. I think that way of thinking is very wrong and something I significantly disagree with. Someone could be going through such a difficult time and you just say, well, good luck. Good, not a sincere good luck, just, well, it's your problem, not mine. I just disagree with that in so many ways. I'm not saying that you need to get into someone's head, that you need to know exactly how a person is, but you can read about what they're going through and try and be able to help them out accordingly. And, it sounds like it's effort, that we gotta put in. Of course, it is a little bit of effort, but like I said, just remember that everyone in this world is a person just like you, with the same feelings, could go through some of the same things, if not worse. And the amount of effort that you would end up exerting in these circumstances is not as much as you would think. I know when I say research something or read about something, I know it puts it puts an image into our minds as though we would be there in a library with stacks of massive books all around us, and it's 3 a.m. and we've been on a binge just trying to research this. It's easier than that. Pretty much all of us have a little computer right at our fingertips called the smartphone. You have a computer at your house, or a laptop, or a PC, or anything. Almost all of us have access to the internet. And you could simply read right there on Google. There would be many, many step-by-step, easy-to-read, comprehensive guides that you can take a look at, and you can try and learn about these conditions to be able to help those you care about get through them swiftly and as painlessly as possible. And even if you don't have internet access, because I know this broadcast does reach people who have no internet, there are still resources you can use. You can still go to a library. You can still have conversations with people that you know or that are in your area. If all you have is the radio, listen to different radio stations, try and get new information, try and get different perspectives. There are always ways that you can try and learn more and try and familiarize yourself with these situations, regardless of the resources. Because as I said with anxiety, there will be people who will say, I'm going through some anxiety, and they might just be feeling a little nervous about a situation. You might have other people who say the exact same thing, and they are going through living hell, and it is unbearable, and it's just something that they don't want to think about. They really don't want to try and put any more thought to it than they have to. They're just going through a really bad time, and that's just what they might say. But of course, those two things, while they may express them in the same words, are so different. Same thing with migraines. You might have people that say they have a migraine, and it can be a headache, or it can be a bad headache. You may have other people that say they're going through a migraine, and it's as though they were shot in the head, out of commission, and just, you cannot function. You can't really talk, you can't move, you can't do much of anything because the pain is just too severe. There's all different types of things, and it impacts us all in so many different ways. Please keep that in mind, because it's such an important thing, if you ask me. Like I said, this isn't one of those things that you need to dedicate every second to, but I think it is one of those things that if we just put forward a little bit of time each day to researching and showed a little more empathy, I think it can do a tremendous amount of good to those who are in our lives. You're listening to VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. I would really appreciate your feedback, your questions, comments, reception reports, and music requests are welcome. The email address you can reach me at is vorwinfo@gmail.com. I'll repeat it again, vorwinfo@gmail.com. It's one long sequence. Once again, I repeat, vorwinfo@gmail.com. This is the only way I have of knowing that anyone is listening, that anyone is tuned into this broadcast. It's the only way that I know anyone is listening. Writing and sending an email, I've said it before, and it has been proven that this is just how quick it can be. You can send an email in 15 seconds or less. Open up Gmail, or whatever email program you use. I always go to Gmail. And just type in, send to vorwinfo@gmail.com. Just say, listening on TuneIn, listening in on SoundCloud, catching the show on 4840 kilohertz, or whatever it might be. You can be more detailed if you'd wish, but at the minimum, that's all that we need to know that people are listening. With that, this show is indeed a mixture of talk, commentary, and music. I'm going to take a little bit of a music break myself. These are two songs that I've been listening to over this last week. Certainly quite different songs. One is some classic rock from the 70s, the other is some more experimental rock from the 90s. I have a feeling, though, that a large percentage of us have either heard one of those songs or the other, or maybe both of them, because they both have been featured in various movies and films and TV shows, and you name it. Just good music overall. It's coming up for you on VORW.